Amanda the Lioness Nunes is not just a name in the world of MMA. She is a force of nature, a legend forged in the fires of adversity and ambition. But her rise to dominance did not begin in a grand stadium under the flashing lights. It started in the unlikeliest of places, with an unbreakable will and a hunger that could not be tamed. Her story is one of resilience, passion, and relentless pursuit of greatness, proving that champions are not born. They are made through trials that would break the ordinary. Born in Brazil, Amanda was not the child prodigy many would expect. She didn't grow up dreaming of championship belts or UFC glory. Her first love was soccer, the heartbeat of Brazil's culture. She envisioned herself on the field, dazzling crowds with her footwork. But fate had different plans. When she was just 4 years old, her parents separated, and she moved in with her mother and 2 sisters. Life was not easy. Her mother, Yvette, worked tirelessly, selling hot dogs and beauty products alongside her regular job as a school administrative assistant, just to make ends meet. But adversity has a way of shaping warriors. School was a part of her routine, but sports were her real passion. She was naturally athletic, excelling in soccer with an aggressive play style that hinted at the fighter she would become. But trouble followed her, as street fights became a regular occurrence. Unlike most parents, her mother did not disapprove. Yvette had once been a boxer herself. However, she urged Amanda to channel her energy into a structured environment. It was a decision that would alter the course of Amanda's life forever, setting her on a path to the top of the combat sports world. Fighting was in Amanda's blood. Not only had her mother dabbled in boxing, but her uncle, José Silva, had also been a fighter in Brazil's fierce Vale Tudo circuits. As a child, she would watch her mother corner fights, absorbing the raw energy of the sport. When her older sister, Vanessa, took up jiu-jitsu, it was only a matter of time before Amanda followed. At the age of 16, she stepped onto the mat for the first time. That first roll, that first taste of the grind was enough. She was hooked. The journey had begun. Amanda moved to Salvador, where she trained under the legendary Edson Carvalho. It was not a glamorous lifestyle. She lived inside the gym, waking up at 4:30 a.m. every day to clean the mats before training. She was the only female in a gym full of men, a reality that could have discouraged a lesser soul. But Amanda saw it as fuel. She trained harder, absorbing knowledge like a sponge, and before long, she was making a name for herself in jiu-jitsu competitions. Her talent was undeniable. She quickly rose through the ranks, earning her blue, purple, and brown belts. But she wasn't satisfied with just grappling. She wanted more. Boxing became her next conquest. Adding striking to her arsenal made her a complete fighter, and soon she was ready to test her skills in the cage. On March 8, 2008, Amanda Nunes made her professional MMA debut. But instead of the dream start she had envisioned, she suffered a crushing defeat in just 35 seconds. For many, this would have been the end, a sign to turn back. But Amanda was not wired that way. 3 months later, she was back in the cage, and this time, she didn't just win, she demolished her opponent in 11 seconds. It was a statement to the world. She was here to stay. In Brazil, she became a wrecking machine, winning 5 straight fights, all by knockout. Her reputation as a ferocious striker was growing, and soon the bigger leagues came calling. She made her way to Strikeforce, where she continued to showcase her explosive power. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. Losses came, doubts crept in, and the road to the UFC seemed uncertain. Yet with every setback, she adjusted. Every loss was a lesson, refining her craft, making her sharper, tougher, and more dangerous. Then in 2013, she got the call that changed everything. The UFC awaited. Her UFC debut was a preview of things to come. She obliterated Sheila Gaff in the first round, earning her first UFC paycheck, $12,000. It was a humble beginning, but Amanda had her eyes on something far greater. She worked her way up the rankings, finishing fighters with ruthless efficiency. Then at UFC 200, the moment arrived. She faced Miesha Tate for the bantamweight title, and in dominant fashion, she dismantled the champion, securing a submission victory in the first round. Amanda Nunes was now the UFC champion, and the world had no idea what was coming next. Defending her title was one thing, but what Amanda did next cemented her legacy. In her first title defense, she faced the biggest name in women's MMA history, Ronda Rousey. The world expected a competitive fight. Instead, Amanda delivered a massacre. In just 48 seconds, she destroyed Rousey, ending the era of the former champion and announcing her own reign with an emphatic roar. The lioness had arrived, and there was no stopping her. But Amanda wasn't content with just one belt. She wanted to make history. At UFC 232, she moved up in weight to challenge the fearsome featherweight champion, Chris Cyborg, a fighter many believed was invincible. What happened next shocked the MMA world. Amanda obliterated Cyborg in 51 seconds, securing her place as the first woman in UFC history to hold titles in two divisions simultaneously. The doubters were silenced. The records were shattered. Amanda Nunes was now the undisputed greatest female fighter of all time. Her list of achievements is staggering. With over 22 wins, 13 knockouts, and multiple title defenses, she holds records that may never be broken. She became the first woman to defend titles in two weight classes, held the longest combined title reign, and has the most knockouts in UFC women's bantamweight history. But beyond the records, beyond the accolades, what truly sets Amanda apart is her unrelenting spirit. She fights not just for glory, but for something bigger: her family, her legacy, and the belief that anything is possible. From needing a break due to nerve damage to believing that women's MMA is in good hands, here's the real reason Amanda Nunes stepped away. Amanda truly needed rest. She's thrilled to return to Brazil, but there's a bigger issue. Her legs have been plagued by nerve damage for years, and every fight made it worse. That's why we always saw her on crutches post-fight. But retirement doesn't mean stepping away from MMA entirely. Amanda has big plans, returning to her gym, setting up a studio in South Florida, and becoming a coach. She can't stay away from the sport. She's built a gym where some of the most talented women train, and now she's ready to help them achieve greatness. With her knowledge, Amanda could shape a future champion just like herself. If she dedicates herself to mentoring one fighter, who knows how far they could go? She's passionate about passing down her legacy and helping the next generation reach their full potential. And here's the thing. Someone saw this coming. Dana White. The UFC president wasn't surprised when Amanda announced her retirement. What did surprise him? The way she did it. With a record-breaking performance, she shattered UFC records. Most strikes landed in a fight. More takedowns than ever before. Dana had a feeling Amanda might retire, but seeing her dominate like that, it still left him in awe. He admitted she's earned millions, completely changed her life over the past decade, and had nothing left to prove. Sure, he'd love to see her continue, but he respects her decision and just wants her to be happy. And in Dana's eyes, she's the greatest female fighter of all time. Now, we all know MMA retirements can be temporary, but Dana believes this one is real. And judging by the emotion Amanda showed after her final fight, it makes sense. After defeating Irene Aldana at UFC 289, Amanda placed both her championship belts on the mat, had her cut man remove her gloves, and left them in the center of the octagon. Then she knelt down and wept. It was a moment that signaled the end of an era. She completely dominated Aldana, securing a unanimous decision victory and defending her bantamweight and featherweight titles. But here's the twist. Aldana wasn't even supposed to be her opponent. It was meant to be Juliana Pena in a trilogy fight, but Pena had to pull out due to injury. At the post-fight press conference, Amanda was asked how she wanted to be remembered. Her response? "The greatest of all time. I did everything. I broke all the records." Short, simple, undeniable. For over 5 years, Amanda Nunes ruled women's MMA. She demolished Miesha Tate at UFC 200, then obliterated Ronda Rousey just 5 months later. Challenger after challenger came for her, but none could take her throne, until Juliana Pena did the unthinkable in 2021. For a while, it seemed like Valentina Shevchenko might take Amanda's GOAT status, dominating the flyweight division, just as Nunes had done in bantamweight. A third fight between them felt inevitable, until Juliana shook up the division. And just when it seemed Shevchenko could be the next best thing, she lost her title to Alexa Grasso at UFC 285. Now, the flyweight division is set for a rematch between Grasso and Shevchenko later this year. Shevchenko could reclaim her belt, but she's 35 years old, just like Nunes. She spent 2 decades in combat sports. Even the best can't outrun time. Then there's Cris Cyborg, another legend. She's still the Bellator Women's Featherweight Champion, gearing up for fights against Kat Zingano and Sarah McMahon. But at 37, with 18 years in the game, how much longer can she dominate? Kayla Harrison has the skills to be the face of women's MMA, a 2-time Olympic judo gold medalist with star power. But there's a problem. She doesn't have a division. And after losing to Larissa Pacheco in the PFL lightweight finals, her path isn't so clear. With Amanda gone, the UFC may shut down the women's featherweight division entirely, leaving Harrison with nowhere to compete in the UFC. If there was ever a time for PFL and Bellator to make a super fight between Harrison and Cyborg, it's now. Women's MMA needs a massive event to shake things up. Meanwhile, the strawweight division is stacked, led by Zhang Weili. But beyond her, things are less certain. Can Rose Namajunas make a comeback? Can Mackenzie Dern rise through the ranks? Keep an eye on Erin Blanchfield. At just 24 years old, she's undefeated in the UFC flyweight division and could be a major star in the coming years. And don't forget Tatiana Suarez, a potential champion in both strawweight and flyweight. If not for injuries, she might have already been on top. Then there's Alexa Grasso, who needs to prove herself in her rematch with Shevchenko. And what about the women's bantamweight division? With Juliana Pena holding the only win over Nunes in years, she's the new queen of 135. But the other top contenders have been around for a while. Will a fresh face rise up? With the women's featherweight division likely gone, could the UFC introduce an atomweight division instead? Fighters at 105 or 108 pounds are thriving worldwide. One name stands out: Sika Izawa, Japan's undefeated super atomweight champion in Risen. If the UFC wants to shake things up, she's a great choice. So there you have it. From nerve damage forcing her to step back to knowing women's MMA has a bright future. That's the real reason Amanda Nunes retired.